So let's kick off with a look at the enablers of sustainable economic growth. From time to time, there have been debates on the exchange rate system being operated in Nigeria. While the country operates a multiple exchange rate regime, there have been calls from different quarters on the need for a unified exchange rate to jumpstart the nation's economy. And a lot of analysts have talked about this. How can we have multiple windows and, you can get the naira at this rate at a particular place and then another rate?
This affects businesses, especially when most of the production we have in Nigeria, you get raw materials and you need exchange rate to
get them. And of course, there have been different agreements that have been signed. How will this, and talk about foreign exchange, foreign investments, coming into the country. How are they able to say, what, we are sure of what the exchange rate is going to be like for the next how many years? There have been other countries where you go, for instance, in 2015 or 2010, as far back as that time, and the exchange rate, you can be sure that it hasn't moved, so much higher. But we have an economist in the studio. We have to tell us more about how to unify Nigeria's exchange rate. We have in the studio the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company Limited, a macroeconomic research and financial advisory firm, Mr. Bismarck Rewane.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So we are trying to be economists this morning, but we are not. So
that's
why that's why we have you here. Yes. Let's start from the African Free Trade Agreement.
Yes.
Okay, so we have this signed now.
Yes,
right?
Signed.
And then we still operate some of this, multiple exchange rates that we have. How is this going to work in terms of this agreement in place right now?
First of all, the unfortunate thing is that Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa. But
Did you say unfortunate?
No. Unfortunately, we, the largest economy in Africa, were the last to sign. If anything, if anybody was to sign first, it should have been us, because we benefit more from being the largest economy in Africa. To put it in perspective, 1 in every 5 Africans is a Nigerian. $1 out of every $6 produced in Africa originates from Nigeria.
1 out of every 6.
Yeah, so if there's $6 produced in Africa today, $1 comes from Nigeria. And I'm talking about the entire continent. Even though we are like number 8 or number 9 in size of land space. So we have the advantage of this. And more important is that after agriculture, the next most important contributor of GDP is wholesale and retail trade. So wholesale and retail trade comes to 18.5% of GDP in Nigeria. And therefore, it employs people, but every trade has to be settled in a currency that satisfies both the exporter, the importer, or the internal review of activities. But having said that, the truth is that it's better late than never. We've signed it, and what are the benefits of this agreement to the ordinary man? It's not just another concept in the air. And what do we have to do in terms of exchange rate management to ensure that this is efficient?
Okay, maybe you should start first by you explaining to us what this agreement is about.
This agreement is about, by the year 2022, trade between African countries will be duty-free, tariff-free. In other words, if I buy something in Benin Republic and I'm coming across to Nigeria, I will not pay any duty. If you buy your car in Cameroon, so there'll be duty-free activity, what we call a customs union. In other words, Nigeria will not have to be protectionist and saying that you cannot ban this, you cannot import that. No.
Like we have between America and China.
Yes, that's bilateral. This one is a multilateral. The entire African region becomes one country for economic purposes, like in the European Union, Germany, Holland, Italy, France, all of them together, one market. They use the same currency. You have a Schengen visa, it could take you around any of the 23 countries. So it's always the first step in the movement towards custom union, followed by currency union, and then political union in the end. That's what is the expectation. But one thing is clear, that if you take African trade between African countries, what we call intra-regional trade within African countries, comes only about 16 to 17% of total trade, while 75% of all the trade, especially Nigeria, is done with outside inter-regional. That is, we sell our oil to Holland, to the United States, India, and we buy mainly from Europe, right? But like just like other countries, other groupings, you find that Russia, what do you call it? In Africa, we have not actually maximized the trading arrangement. And I'll give you an example. For example, if you buy a car, a Toyota car made in Japan today, Toyota Corolla will cost you 23 million naira. Toyota also manufactures in South Africa. If you were to buy the car in South Africa today, under this agreement, the cost of the Toyota car will be 5 million naira as against 23 million naira. So you can see the difference immediately. Not only that, every other thing that is produced in African countries will be cheaper. But then there are certain constraints, what we call country of origin rules. It's possible that some of these African countries will import these things into their country and claim that it was produced there. And then the countries like Nigeria now have become dumping grounds. But today, Nigeria is also already a dumping ground in any form. The people that benefit from all of these restrictions are the smugglers and the custom officers who help the smuggling. So to me and to the bulk of the Nigerians out there, we're saying, look, this is the time to go for it, go for growth. Trade agreements followed by currency arrangements. Immediately, we talked about multiple exchange rates. Multiple exchange rates are not efficient, because even if you'll find that to lead to further smuggling. So this conference was held last week, and it came up very clearly with the fact that we have to have a unified exchange rate.
All right. We understand that it was a very high-level meeting that you had. But before we delve into that, we want to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll talk about that as well as the nitty-gritty, those agreements, and how it impacts Nigeria.
Yes.
Join us again.
Welcome back. We still have Mr. Rewane here, an economist. Before we went on that break, Kayode was talking about some of the reasons why Nigeria may not have signed this agreement on time, which is, okay, if we have this duty and tariff-free trade, and so a product that, for instance, will be coming from Ghana, if this phone is manufactured there and it can get to Nigeria for 1,000 naira, and it's also manufactured in Nigeria, and because of our challenges with infrastructure, electricity, and all of that, it's produced, the cost is 1,500 naira. What does this do to the manufacturers in Nigeria? Because if I see this phone for 1,000 naira, about the same quality, and the one for Nigeria that is produced here is 1,500 naira, of course you know where I will go.
But again, it forces the company to become more efficient, rather than just assuming that you're protected. Basically, you're protecting inefficiency if you 1,000.
But they have to deal with some of these other issues that they're not dealing with, for instance, in Ghana and other neighboring.
No, but they also have their own problems as well. But the truth is that you have the advantage of a big market. So once there's economies of scale, the average cost will come down, shouldn't increase, right? So to me, that argument doesn't wash, in the sense that if you are going to wait until the infrastructure is fixed before you sign any agreement, then you will never get anywhere, right? So you have to bite the bullet And there are three people who are most important in this. The consumer, you and I, who are looking for the best price. The manufacturer, who is trying to employ people and trying to ensure that he can maximize his turnover and profitability. And then the government, whose responsibility is to ensure that he can provide jobs and reduce unemployment and increase growth. When you put all of these things together, it's important to know that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is the best thing that has happened to this country in the last 5 years.
Okay, so how do we enjoy the benefits? Are we able to enjoy the benefits without doing something about the multiple exchange rate system that we have?
You will, but you won't maximize the benefits. So you have to actually unify the exchange rate system so that you have an efficient exchange rate system for settling all transactions. The central bank was there, and the central bank said, we do not have a multiple exchange rate. I call them multiple windows. I think that the truth is that we are converging. We are converging rates. We have not unified the rates yet. The central bank says they need time to do it efficiently. The market is calling for almost an immediate unification of rates. But as long as rates are converging, you will get the benefit, right? Not as much, but when we have a unified exchange rate, eventually, you get the benefit of the trade agreement, you get the benefits of settling transactions efficiently, and more than anything else, you have a jump starting of growth. So there's no question about it. African Continental Free Trade Agreement is good for Nigeria. The exchange rate unification is absolutely necessary.
So this unification you're talking about,
yes.
What does it really mean? Does it mean that for anywhere in Nigeria,
yes.
the dollar to the naira will be the same, whether the parallel market will exist?
One rate. Right now you have 305, which is government, for oil companies importing petrol. You have 325, which is the rate at which the government and the central bank change the dollars. There's the BDC rates. There's also the parallel market rate. Okay, so all those rates are beginning to, are inefficient. What was happening before is that there was 305 was the official rate, and it went as high. The parallel market went as high as 520. Now the parallel market is at 360. In fact, yesterday it appreciated to 359. So the IE window, which is the rate at which investors do their transactions, is 362. So you find that essentially all the rates are coming around
325,
yeah,
360.
But the 305 is only for a particular segment of business in the country. What we are saying is that you can dismantle that 305 and make everything come together at about 358, 360. And then when you have that, you find that there will be no regulatory arbitrage, because who are the people that benefit for the 305 rates? Maybe people going for pilgrims and all of that. Those are not the most efficient way to manage your exchange rate. So having said that, the Central Bank of Nigeria, I think, is determined now to support the currency at a particular level, while they would allow for an efficient unification of the rates over a period. I suspect that it has to happen this year.
Yeah, but since the FX convergence was one of the signposted factors to ensure that we benefit from this, give us a sense of what the discussions were like, because we understand that it was heated. And what stands between us and that time that the central bank is saying we have to give them to ensure that they unify it?
Well, you see, the unified exchange rate is the outcome of a market structure. If the way to allow an efficient market structure, you have to change the supply-demand parameters. The debate was such that, of course, the IMF took a position that multiple exchange rate practices actually are a deterrent to growth. There's also all the multilaterals and all the economists believe that the exchange rate regime that we have today is not the most efficient. But the central bank says that, well, they are managing it gradually and gradually getting there. But it was a very healthy full and frank debate about how to do this and how to reduce regulatory arbitrage. Oil companies bring their money in. They don't care because they sell their oil in dollars, right? So they bring the money in and sell to the central bank at 305. Central bank sells this money to NMPC to bring in petrol and but the reality is that, for example, it is said that we import 60 million liters of PMS a day. That's our use every day. And that is not true. The truth is that our total utilization of petrol in this country is not more than 30 million liters a day. So there is a falsification of the facts. And all of that, so whoever is benefiting from this exchange rate is probably bringing in half of it and using the other half for other reasons, right? So until that is interrogated and investigated, we do not know. But if we have one unified rate, then there will be no room for abuse. And the lower the abuse, the room you have for abuse, the better for the economy and the better for growth. That is the truth.
The better for the economy and the better for growth. Because what Nigerians want, some Nigerians have not even seen the color of dollars, but they want the economy
to work
well. They want a robust economy, and we are hoping that all of these enablers of sustainable growth will be put in place to ensure that Nigeria's economy move forward. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We'll be speaking with the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Thank you. So we take a quick break now, and Sunrise will be back with another topic. To stay with us.